Well, good day to you. Welcome back. We're going to do an interesting video today. I'm going to be looking at 5 Type Bar electric typewriters in my collection. 3 of them I actually keep here at my home, and 2 of the others, one of them is my typewriter, but one of my brothers uses it, and the other typewriter is our family typewriter that we've had since the early 1970s. So allow me to start, because I can't put all 5 of these big machines on my little table here at once. Allow me to start. On your left is the SCM-made Smith Corona Marchant, if you don't know what SCM is. SCM-made Singer-branded electric typewriter right here, and one of my favorites. And then on your right is the SCM Coronet Automatic 12. This typewriter is currently living at my brother's house. It's a long-term loan, and I haven't seen it in a while. I got it, cleaned it up a little bit, and actually it's surprisingly good. But before we get into that, let's look at the other 3 typewriters. And on your left, we have the Olympia Reporter, and this is made by Nakajima in Japan. It was made in the early 1980s, so it's probably my newest mechanical or type bar typewriter, not counting the thermal typewriters. And then on your right, this is the family typewriter, is the Hermes 10. It's really like a wide carriage Hermes 3000 that's been electrified, which is really cool. Look at all of these here. So that's 4 of these Type Bar electrics, but there's one more, the OG. And of course, finally, the original portable electric typewriter, the Smith Corona Electric, the 5TE series. These were the first portable electrics. There were electric typewriters before these, but they weren't portable. They were like standard big typewriters. But this is what started it all. So we have 5 typewriters to look at, to compare, to consider. And one of the first things I thought about is, how do we categorize these typewriters? Because there's a lot of different ways to look at this collection of 5 Type Bar electrics. Well, to start with, here's one way to look at it. 2 of these 5 typewriters have manual carriages. That's right. The Singer Electric, made by Smith Corona, of course, and the original Smith Corona Electric, both have manual carriages, and it's really kind of cool having manual carriage return, because you sort of feel like you're still dealing with a manual typewriter. It really feels that way. It has the same controls, in this case, as a 5 series manual, like a Silent Super or whatever, and in this case, like a 6 series. It's the same carriage layout. But the difference is that you have the electrification of the keys and the space bar and the auto repeat on some of the keys. Very quick typing action, very light finger pressure, essentially like a mechanical computer keyboard in terms of the amount of key travel and the amount of force you have to apply. So almost like the best of both worlds, I would suggest. Right? So this is one way to look at it. If you're in the market or curious about Type Bar electric machines, this is one option, getting a Type Bar electric with a manual carriage return. Now, there's another way of organizing these 5 typewriters, and I made a whole list of them earlier, and we might not have quite enough room for this, but the other way to organize them is this. These 3 typewriters represent American Type Bar typewriters in my collection, and they represent Smith Corona typewriters in my collection. This is about 1960. The Singer Electric is early 1960s, I'm sure. And the same thing with the Coronet Automatic 12. It's going to be early 1960s, the best I can tell. But of these 3 machines, of course, we have 2 of them that are manual carriage, and we have one that is an automatic powered carriage. One thing interesting about this typewriter, however, amongst all 3 of these Smith Coronas, this one has half-line spacing. That's right, it has 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3-line spacing. It has 5 line spacing selections, whereas this has the standard 1, 2, 3, as does all the other Smith Coronas in my collection, at least, have just 1, 2, and 3. So here you are. You can categorize these by American-made typewriters from the late 50s to early 60s. Well, I first had an opportunity to reuse the Coronet Automatic 12 yesterday evening as I was preparing for this video, and I typed a selection of typings on this machine and then this machine and then the Olympia Nakajima machine on this same sheet of paper. And I was interested in my reflections about the Coronet Automatic 12. The typing action I write is rather swift. The carriage return is very brisk and rapid, but also makes a zip sound, sort of, kinda, but faster in typing action than I remember. Impressive, even after having typed the previous text using its Singer cousin. The sound it makes is twofold. First, the constant humming of the motor and drive belts. It kind of sounds like an old car idling. Not as smooth as a modern car's idle for certain, but then there is the brzz of the swift automatic carriage return on top of the incessant motor humming. Just enough to remind me that this is a product of the 1960s, the same decade that brought mankind to set foot or boot on the moon. Maybe this was how the Apollo command module sounded with its pneumatic computer and relays clattering, etc. Anyways, some little reflections. I'm always interested in my initial reaction on having tried a typewriter after a long period of absence. And so I was very impressed with the speed of the carriage return, and the action of it is really quite good considering it has sat unused. My brother really hasn't been using it all, so it's been sitting idle for a long time. And of course, you know, typewriters don't like to sit idle, but still quite impressive. Yet another way that we can categorize typewriters in my electric type art collection is by carriage size or platen size. 13¼ inch long platen in the Hermes 10, 12-inch on the Coronet Automatic 12, as you would expect, and 12½ inches on the Olympia Reporter. 3 of the machines are wide carriage machines, and that could be good for you or it could be bad for you. It all depends on whether you like wide carriage machines. By the way, since I mentioned the line spacing on the Coronet Automatic 12, 5 different selections and its half-line spaced increments, the Olympia Reporter Nakajima has 1, 1.5, and 2, as well as the Hermes 10, 1, 1.5, and 2. So really, the Coronet Automatic 12 looks like it gives you more line spacing options. Okay, let's get some paper loaded into the Coronet Automatic 12. It's a very speedy and swift typewriter, and I don't have any problems with like piling on of letters or any kind of glitches like that. It does need a new ribbon, and actually the ribbon, if I'm remembering right, it has a brown ribbon on the bottom half. So my wife and I had named this typewriter Jitters because of its coffee color. This here, almost like a caramel and then an espresso brown, and you can't see it from your angle, but there's this fake wood grain paneling on the front that reminds me of those station wagons from the 1960s, those big American cars, sort of the prototype of the SUV that came later. But anyway, we called it Jitters because it reminded us of coffee, and also the violent, almost violent carriage return is sort of like if you were hopped up on goofballs or on caffeine. In this case, you might be jittery. Yes, you might be jittery after several cups of coffee using this machine. But anyways, surprisingly good machine, and I haven't really done much maintenance to it at all. It probably needs belts replaced and some cleaning or whatever, but it runs, which is amazing, right? So let's go now to your left and let's look at the Hermes 10. First of all, I had to show you the cord. It's a beautiful cream colored cord, and the grade of plastic insulation or whatever, rubber insulation, it's very smooth and flexible. It hasn't gotten hard at all. Has a really interesting feel to it, and this style of plug where you can see that there was probably a European style connector option also from the width of it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting style. You don't see those anymore, at least not in US made products. But okay, let's plug this in and see what happens. Well, okay, so just keep in mind I have not tested this machine at all, which I have tested the Coronet beforehand. Okay, well, there you go. I will thread in our test sheet of paper here. Oh yes, it threads. So the carriage is very much like a Hermes 3000. Because of the long curved card guides and the way the large paper bail rollers are, you can curl the paper right underneath the bail like that, pretty much, without having to worry about it. Ah, okay, let's set our margin. And hey, how does the margin set? Just like a Hermes 3000. And yes, it does have the red indicator for the margins. Okay, let's see. It is a very nice machine. I should mention also that the carriage is very much like a Hermes 3000 style carriage, except it does not have a carriage lock. So apparently it's relying on the fact that you're going to put it in its case to keep the carriage from moving. So there is no carriage lock here, which is interesting. I think the key travel seems like it's shorter than on the Coronet Automatic 12. If I can move the Coronet over here, let's see. The Coronet's powered off, of course, but I'm looking at the distance that you can push it. It looks like the Hermes is shorter of a distance, so that's kind of interesting. The Olympia is the only one of these 5 typewriters that has a 3-prong power cord, which is interesting. Okay, so I should mention, to start with, when you power off the machine, the carriage lock is engaged. I do notice that the carriage return seems a little slower than on the Hermes and on the Coronet. And also, I notice, because I've been using this machine frequently, I can certainly get piling on of letters more than I would like. So there's probably some maintenance that I need to do into this that I haven't been able to figure out why it does. And of course, I mentioned also the Hermes tends to do that as well a little bit, piling on of letters. Interestingly enough, however, the Coronet that's been ignored all of this time in my brother's house types fine. So there you go. Well, forgive me for my sloppy typing, but I was doing very fast, standing up in a non-ergonomic position. But the Coronet Automatic 12 has a surprisingly good imprint, considering it's been ignored and not used for a couple of years. And I noticed that there's absolutely no character spacing issues at all, regardless of how quickly and staccato-like I type. The Hermes 10 is a European smaller typeface, closer to Elite, one of those metric style typefaces. But I do notice that I have some piling on of letters. For instance, here on the word copy, the O is happening a little early. And where else? Then I try retesting it, and I don't see it happening as much. And then I put the touch selector back to 4 instead of 1, and it looks like it was a little more reliable. And that's probably the reason why the touch selector was set to 4, was because the last time I'd used this a couple years ago, I probably noticed that it was doing the piling on of letters and probably needed that. Okay, the Nakajima Reporter, its imprint is not as dark as the other two, but it's also using an older ribbon. It also does a little bit of piling on of letters. Here you can see the E of the word R, A-R-E. The E is crowded onto the R. I know that I can get crowding happening on this machine, but if I slow down just slightly, it's fine. Also, I should mention that depending on your hand position on all 5 of these typewriters really, if you aren't supporting your arms properly, it's easy to put too much pressure of your fingers on the keyboard and mistakenly mistype a letter. Like with a manual typewriter, if you're midway through the stroke and you're hitting the wrong key, you can often pull back before you actually make an imprint, but not with these electrics. Any kind of motion at all, and you're probably going to print a letter. So one of the things about electric type R machines is you have to be more precise. There's less room for error. They will print the character right as you barely press the key down. What I'm really curious about is because 3 of these machines have automatic carriage returns, which makes them quite distinctively different than the other 2. You know, we need to have a competition. We need to have a shootout. We need to have a tournament. That's right, a Type Bar electrified carriage tournament. And the idea here is which carriage return is the fastest. Keeping in mind that these three machines have different size carriages. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the margins on all three of these machines to be the same width. And I think I'll set them to an 11-inch length, which is the length of a US letter size sheet of paper put in sideways. So we'll have the 11-inch margin. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the American one, the Coronet Automatic 12, and then I'm going to flip a coin and see whether the Hermes or the Olympia is the first competitor against the American typewriter. So I'm going to do a coin toss to determine which typewriter faces the Coronet Automatic 12 first. So we're going to use the convention of Hermes is heads and tails is Olympia Nakajima. Okay, here we go. There it is. Let's zoom in, refocus. It is tails. Olympia Nakajima gets the nod first to go up against the Smith Corona. Who has the fastest carriage return? There to there. Okay, 11 inches on the Olympia. That looks like I should go a little bit further on this one, left one. That looks good. That's 11 inches. So I have the margin set. I have the carriages moved out to the right margin. Here are the print positions. And so when we do the automatic carriage returns, the carriage will move to the right or down your screen and stop where the left margins are even with the print position here. And so we're going to see which one gets there first. So let me turn on the power to the Coronet, power to the Olympia. All right, okay, so now the thing is I'm going to have to try to push both of these buttons simultaneously. The Coronet definitely was faster. Let's try that again, shall we? Move it back to the right margin. They're both set to an 11-inch line. Here we go. It looks to me like the Coronet Automatic 12 is the speed king between these two machines. But wait, we have waiting in the wings the Hermes 10. So we need to set the margin on the Hermes to the 11-inch paper length. Okay, and then this one, if you guys are familiar with how Hermes margins are set, Hermes 3000s, and I need to turn this on and go, there we go. Okay, by the way, the white carriage release button on the right side of the carriage, there isn't one on the left side with the Hermes 10, so it's different from the Hermes 3000 manual machine. Coronet is powered on, Hermes is powered on, power light. Carriage return buttons, here we go. Ready? The Coronet looks like it's the speed demon winner of this competition. Let's try that again, shall we? Yes. Wow. There's a reason why we named this typewriter Jitters, indeed. Well, you're probably thinking, Joe, we kind of figured the Coronet Automatic 12 would be the fastest carriage return, but we're really interested in who comes in second. They're still set up to the 11-inch wide margin. Fingers on power return keys. Ooh, Hermes 10 comes in second place. Let's do that again just to verify. Ready, set. Definitely Hermes 10 comes in second. There is a noticeable delay between pressing the power return on the Olympia and when it actually starts moving, which is contributing definitely to its third place finish. One thing I should point out is if you are in the market for either a Smith Corona 5 or 6 series electric typewriter machine, you might want to consider the slope of the keyboard. So the 6 series electric has a more shallow slope. The 5 series electric is a little bit steeper of a slope. But they're both very ergonomic and comfortable keyboards to use. Well, I hope this gave you a little bit more insight into electric type bar machines and the variety of machines that are out there. So there are some opinions out there in the typosphere about whether people like electric type bar machines or not. I personally think there's a place for them. Obviously, if I have 5 of them in my collection, there is a place for them. So what I like about them is they're essentially mechanical typewriters. They're just assisted with an electric motor, drive belts, and a spindle that rapidly throws the type bars against the platen and makes the whole typing experience a much different experience. You don't need to have the finger strength. It's much more like a mechanical keyboard on a computer. So the real issue, I think, in regards to type bar electrics is pertaining to the carriage, the electrified carriage. A lot of people are put off by them. Just in the brief time that I refamiliarized myself with the Coronado Automatic 12, for instance, I was really impressed with how when you have to do a line break, a carriage return in the middle of a line, in the middle of your thoughts, you don't have to interrupt your thoughts. You hit that button with your pinky and then you immediately start typing again. And you don't have the interruption, the sporadic interruption of carriage returns. So it does enable a kind of stream of consciousness writing flow that I think is very fun. On the other hand, I think the aesthetics of these typewriters is they are a little more noisy. But just my own subjective sense, the 5TE is the quietest type bar electric. But it's a manual carriage return, so it'd be a little bit slower in operation than these 3 here. I really love the feel and the build quality and the aesthetics of the Hermes 10, and I've been using the Olympia Reporter a lot because it's lighter in weight than all the others, and it has that nifty plastic carrying case with a handle. But both of these tend to pile on letters, and it's something I haven't really gotten into to fix, and I'm not really sure what the problem is actually. But this Coronet Automatic 12, as well as the Singer and the 5TE, all of 3 of those do not have that problem. So there is that to consider. And of course, I'm really speaking just about my own sample of these particular machines. And if you have any other questions about electric typewriters in general, throw a comment down below. I'd love to talk with you about them. But in the meantime, I have some typing to do. These 2 particularly I have not used in a long while. So I have some journal writing and maybe 1 typed page blog writing. We'll see. But I'm going to go get creative here with these typewriters, and I wish the same for you. I wish you would stay creative. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.